This is Live Life Love. Hello and welcome to the Live Life Love podcast. If you are new here, the Live Life Love podcast is all about living a life you love and living your life full of love. I also want to apologize if my voice sounds a little bit weird this week. I am a little bit sick. Now, oftentimes at the end of the episodes, I have some kind of activity or something just to make people really active in whatever they're listening to. And I often encourage journaling. And so I wanted to take an episode just to talk about journaling in general and how it can help in your self-improvement journey and living a life you love. So, what is journaling? My definition here is just journaling is when you put something on paper, and that could be words, images, stickers, even just something to express yourself. And journaling is usually to process kind of internal things that are going on with you. So thoughts, emotions, those kinds of things. And it can really be an exploration to kind of figure out what you're feeling or what your thoughts, or a way to record all those happenings. In journaling, it doesn't need to be neat. It can be messy. It also can be a great way to express yourself and be a sort of creative outlet as well. And there are a lot of different ways to journal, so it's not like there's one right way or one wrong way, or journaling always looks a certain way and not another way. It can really be whatever works best for you and the best way for you to process or think about or record whatever it is you want to record. And if you look online, I'm sure you can find a million different methodologies here of like ways to do it. So it's really just what works for you. So what are the scientific benefits of like actually handwriting things versus typing things up? I know some people do have some kinds of journaling stuff that they keep on their computer, but I really do recommend like actually taking a pen to paper to write things down. And this is kind of why I looked at an article called The Neuroscience Behind Writing, Handwriting versus Typing, Who Wins the Battle? That is the name of the article. And so this was kind of a scientific paper from Italy that used results from multiple neuroimaging studies that looked at people's brains as they were typing or handwriting things to kind of figure out what was happening in their brains during that time. And what they found is that handwriting requires a very complex coordination of motor skills, and there is a level of cognitive engagement and memory that happens when you handwrite things that just doesn't exist with typing. And the reasoning behind this was that there is like a certain amount of like coordination of thought, action, and vision that happens with writing. And it's also like your attention has to be focused on the task. And there's like a longer processing time that is involved, which can improve the memory of whatever you're writing down and retaining whatever information you are writing down. And it uses more brain regions than typing, which leads to deeper learning of whatever is being written down. And you might be like, well, this is talking about like learning and memory. Is that stuff actually like important for journaling? And I think that's actually where the power of journaling comes into place. It's like the process of actually writing down whatever is in your head onto paper, commits that to memory, and helps you actually like think about it often and have it like be more implemented into your life. Also, it's like a physical record that can be referred to later in your self-development journey. And like I said, in my opinion, journaling and the way I have used journaling in the past, it is ultimately some kind of creative practice for me, which I think also having some kind of everyday way to be creative is beneficial. And this is where I looked at yet another study from the National Library of Medicine that looked into the title of the article, and what it looked into was being creative makes you happier, the positive effect of creativity on subjective well-being. And again, this was another paper that pulled from multiple studies. So it has that repeatability that makes it more credible. And what they found was that when subjects were forced to do some kind of creative activity when filling out a survey about their emotions, they generally reported that they were happier. So with that being said, if creativity makes you happier and writing things down versus typing, engages your brain in a way that helps your memory and retention of whatever you're writing down, there are intrinsic health properties that journaling can provide that can be super helpful for you. And you might be like, oh, you said that there's a bunch of different ways to journal, but what even are all the ways? What are some of the ways that journaling looks like? How could I actually implement this in my life? So first of all, I do recommend, if you want to get into journaling, pick one type of journaling to start out and pick a time of day that would work for you. Well, I recommend either right in the morning when you wake up or right before you go to bed, as both those times can be great for processing and working out kind of your emotions and whatnot. So I think the classic thing that maybe comes to people's mind with journaling is just day by day, this is what happened, Dear Diary. Maybe that's what you think of it more as, of a diary of Dear Diary, today I did blah, 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 blah. And what I think is great about this type of journaling is it does help you kind of remember those periods of your life better. It might help you process kind of any emotions that came up throughout the day. And for this kind of journaling, I do recommend it to be an end of the day kind of activity. If you want to start it up, you can kind of tailor this type of journaling to yourself for sure. If you want to focus on, it could even be I want to journal about what I ate. If you're really into food, or journal about any weird experiences or stories, or if you want to, work on more expressing your emotions or processing your emotions and writing down day to day, oh, this happened and I felt this way, is a great way to start to begin to connect with your emotions if you feel particularly disconnected from them. And obviously, day-to-day journaling can be a little bit more time-consuming, especially if you have very full days. But a great way to journal, and even, there's been tons of, people coming out and saying what the benefits of gratitude is. And so having a gratitude journal where you just write down one thing or two things that you're grateful for every day has shown to have a lot of mental health benefits. And you can really practice gratitude journaling at any point in the day that makes you happiest. Now, that it can even be just a lunch thing where you just write it down real quick. Some other, maybe less conventional journaling ways is a lot of people journal as a way to track their habits. So if you find that maybe a pen and paper way to track to make sure you're actually implementing whatever habits you want to do, or track if they're not daily habits, having a little calendar where you can track what was the last day you did something so you can help hold yourself accountable, just creates a great accountability touch point there. So you can kind of just fill it out as you're going about your day. There are also lots of prompt journals out there. Prompt journals are great for if you are I don't know what to write about, but you want to write about something, or you want to process something that's going on in your life, or discover something new about yourself, and you're not really sure where to start. You can easily look up journal prompts as something to kind of write to every day, and those are great. You can weave in other things there, if you are a Christian like me, I know there are like prompt journals, it's more like the devotional thing where you can study the Bible and then there's a prompt that you can write about afterwards. Other ways that you can use journaling are brain dumps. You have so many swirling thoughts or so many ideas about something and you just want to put it all on a paper and see what you have. It's a great way to actually dig through and process that information. You can have like idea notebooks where you write down random ideas you have. If you always find like, oh, I have this really cool idea, and then you forget about it later, or you really want something that you can track to, that's maybe different than just like the Notes app on your phone. Something that you can come back to and expand on those ideas and really flesh them out. And then one of my favorite ways to journal are bullet journals, which kind of can combine everything I mentioned above. But bullet journals are really just a way to track what you have to do each day and create your own layouts for a journal and what you want to do and whatnot. So and they can serve as also like a planner. I consider like planners and to-do lists, by themselves. Maybe they're not journals, but in the bullet journaling kind of way, they can be journals. And then there's also like really unconventional journals, like dream journals. So if you want to remember your dreams, you can write them down. It's usually best to like go to sleep thinking like, I want to remember my dream. And then as soon as you wake up, to write it down. I don't know if there are actually any benefits to dream journaling other than, wow, that was a weird dream I had, but it can still be a fun exercise nonetheless. And you can also have like a story journal if you're a writer and you want to like just have like a brain dump. You just like write whatever's on your head or whatever creative ideas that you have. There's junk journaling, which involves less writing and more just taking different like pieces of paper and memorabilia. I don't even know if I'm saying that word right. I've realized I don't even know if I've ever heard anybody say it out loud, but hopefully you know what I'm talking about. But just like papers and those kinds of things and putting them together in collages and maybe writing down a little bit and creating these really cool pieces of artwork in kind of a journal way. And I still think that does help with processing emotions and creating a record of your life and your memories. I think even scrapbooking can be like a form of journaling in a way. A final, less conventional way of journaling is letters never sent. So writing letters to someone, they can be imaginary or they can be real, and you never plan to send these letters. They're just a way to process your emotions. So like if there's someone that you want to talk to and you can't, especially in like a grieving process, writing letters to them might help you that. I've heard of people writing letters to their future spouse or things like that maybe you give those to that person when you finally meet them, but that's a way to process that excitement and disappointment that you don't have that in your life yet. So I've talked about a lot of different types of journaling, and you might be like, all right, hopefully you don't feel too overwhelmed and you maybe heard one or two ideas where you're like, oh, I want to try that out. But I just wanted to touch on the different types of notebooks that there are out there. There are the classic line notebooks, which can be great for some types of journaling, but not everybody likes that level of structure. If you're looking to make something like a little bit prettier, if you've seen like the pretty bullet journals, if you don't know what I'm talking about, you can look it up, but those are usually done in like a dot grid. So there's like some structure to keep everything looking nice, but ultimately the page does look semi-blank. And then if you prefer just a blank page, there's ones like that. You could even do it in graph paper if that sounds like an exciting place to write out your thoughts for you and you want that kind of extreme structure. But yeah, and so I'm now going to pivot a little bit to talk a little bit about myself and why I care about journaling so much. And ultimately that is because journaling has transformed my life in a way that nothing else really was able to. And it helped me manage a lot of kind of mental health issues that I was having. And of course, I'm not a healthcare professional, So I'm not saying if you have mental health issues that you shouldn't seek, professional help there, but journaling was a way for me to manage my life and process my emotions in a way that helped me move forward. And so like I mentioned before, my favorite was always bullet journaling, just because it allowed me some kind of structure to take control of my life. And I could set small tasks and make to-do lists and goals that felt manageable, that I could actually complete on a daily basis, as well as setting long-term goals that I wanted to work towards in the long run, and just getting that all on paper so that I could process all of that. It also served as a creative outlet for me, just a way to really spend some time every day being creative and creating something beautiful despite chaos around me. And it got me off my phone, which I was kind of in an addictive spiral with. And I especially found it helpful when I was in high school and college, just to manage and organize everything when I had a million things going on. And what I love about bullet journaling is I've been able to shift it or really create methodologies and figuring out journaling ways that work for me in different periods and phases of my life. I also, I used the self-love prompt kind of journal for a little while, and that really helped me start to feel more positive about myself and get in the habit of actually loving myself and improving that area of my life. So those are kind of the areas that I've really used journaling for. I also have always, since a very young age, used it as an idea board. I'd have little notebooks where I'd have all kinds of ideas in them, and they're very fun to look back on. And you might be like, wow, that's a lot of different ways of journaling. It sounds like I'm always journaling, but really, I only journal maybe an hour per week, spend 5-10 minutes per day, just writing down very simple things or creating a little to-do list for the day. And I guess there were some periods where I was maybe spending more time doing it, but now, especially that I work most of the time, I'm not, managing everything I do in my journal anymore. But yes, I have found it to be very, very positive. So, thank you for listening. That is all the material I have for today. Big surprise for the homework this week. I'm just encouraging you to pick one new way of journaling. If you're I don't really know too much about that, maybe you want to research a little bit more before starting, or look up examples before starting. Or if you're I think I have an idea of what that would look like for me and how I would want to do that in my life, I'm going to try, journaling for 5 minutes before bed every day this week or something like that. Just set a little goal for yourself to try to implement journaling into your everyday this week. Thank you so much for listening to the Live Life Love podcast. As always, please share this episode with your friends and family. Follow the podcast on Instagram at Live Life Love Pod, or visit the website livelifelovepodcast.com. You can find past episodes wherever you like to listen, and new episodes come out every Tuesday. Have a great day.